How's it? Have you ever heard a photographer complain that there's nothing to photograph, that they just need to go to some exotic location to create awesome photography? We're going to look at a street photographer today who has a book out called 10 Miles West. The guy's name is Josh Edgoose. Now, he may be familiar to you because along with Shane Taylor, he runs Frameline's magazine and YouTube channel. And I'd reached out to Setanta Books. I said, look, you've got some really kind of cool, titles here, and I'd love to feature some of them on the channel. And they sent me through a couple of books, but the one that I'm going to talk about today, 10 Miles West, is by Josh, as I've mentioned. And I thought, what a great idea to look at somebody who seems to just cover the same ground within his own neighborhood. And I wanted to highlight this because so often, people say there's nothing to photograph, everything is dull and boring, and without going off into talking about, William Eggleston and stuff like that, I wanted to showcase a photographer who, admittedly, I was not really familiar with. I knew Frameline's, the YouTube channel, I'd seen it on my feed a few times, but Josh, as a photographer, I was not familiar with. So I flicked through his book and I recognized a couple of pictures because I had seen them before. However, I was quite struck by the fact that even though these are taken over a 10-year period, there seems to be a consistency that, as I sort of paged through the book, I'm sort of thinking, okay, I'm starting to recognize a style and a feeling, a vibe. And what is it that's really attracting me to his photography? So as I'm sort of flicking through here, there's a couple of things that sort of immediately jump out. One is that there is, due to the processing, I feel, a slightly softer, more 1950s sort of vibe to it. And it's not in the photographs, it's not an overtly, bang in your face kind of feel, but it definitely has this sort of not punchy, contrasty kind of imagery, but just soft, gentle. There's sort of almost pastel tones to them. And what I like about that is that it makes the images feel still, gentle, quiet. I've talked about this in the past. There's this feeling of quietness. Even this photograph here, which is quite a busy image. I wonder if I could sort of hold it up to the screen there. That is, it's got lots going on. There's a lady eating ice cream and all this kind of stuff. But even though it's all this stuff, it's not as frantic or as like in your face as, say, somebody, with this composition, I immediately think of somebody like Alex Webb. And Alex Webb's photographs, they sound loud. And that's not a slight on it. It's just, this just feels the opposite. It's that, I think it's suburbia. I think that's an interesting sort of thing, is that in the suburbs, certainly here in the UK, the suburbs can often be quite quiet, especially when you get to residential streets and things of that nature. And I just get that feeling through Josh's photographs. I don't know about you. If you think about the photographs that you take as an individual, what is it that you find yourself doing over and over again? Something, a feeling that you inject into your own photographs. One of the things when I've been looking through Josh's work, and not just the work from the book, but his wider portfolio, is that I certainly in London, I recognize a lot of places. And that's not surprising. A lot of photographers tend to gravitate towards the same places, and you end up recognizing bits and bobs in various people's photographs. Now, there's one of the images that I came across, and it struck me. It was stuck in my mind because we walked past that spot just a couple of days ago, maybe like a week or two ago, on a photo walk down in London, and it's a space that I recognise. It's in a place called Bank in London, and Alan Schaller takes photographs there, and obviously Josh and lots of other people. I mean, it's hardly surprising. It's a very visually interesting place, but it's interesting to sit and look and go, well, what did I react to? What is me as a photographer? What did I take pictures of in Bank? And funnily enough, Bank itself doesn't really do anything for me. I can see the potential for it, but right now I'm sort of instigating is probably the wrong word, isn't it? I'm thinking more about trying to focus on light and specifically shadow, using shadow to highlight the light and to hide ideas, hide elements in the photographs, and really just break them down into very geometric shapes. So the places around Bank, the more modern buildings, they're the ones that appeal to me. Recently, I was talking a lot about, atmosphere in photographs and things of that nature. As I said, I need misty images. And there's a wonderful photograph here from East Twickenham of the tube going over the Thames. And it's just all mist and stuff like that. And it's a wonderfully evocative photograph. It kind of reminds me of Turner's, the locomotive going across the bridge and sort of smoke and steam and things like that nature. And I wondered, you could probably, I think if you lived in London and you saw this every single day, you get kind of sick of seeing it. You would just kind of dismiss it. But the photographer, and I'd love you to try and put this into your own thought process when you're out there taking images, and I certainly should as well, is to think, what potential does this have? If I look at a lot of, Josh's photography, there was a couple of images that reminded me of Matt Stewart, which is quite interesting because on the Frameline's website, on the YouTube channel rather, there is actually an interview with Josh and Matt Stewart talking about it. Go check it out, it's very interesting. But I looked at the work and I went, oh, that feels like a Matt Stewart kind of photograph. Like seeing the potential for an image that works on sort of like a juxtaposition and waiting for things to align. As you go about your daily business, I think this is the benefit of doing something like this, staying within your own area, is that you get to see the place in a variety of different conditions, weather, lighting, time of day, the season, all that kind of stuff. And I see this with the photo walks that we do, because I follow the route. I sort of go from Liverpool Street down to the Tate Museum and sort of come back again. And I can see a number of places along that route where, say, for example, somebody like Alan Schaller has photographed, but I'm seeing it, I see the potential, because you see the place and you go, okay, well, this looks nothing like his photographs. And you go, of course, because he's walked this route. He knows what time of day the light's going to be doing the right thing that he wants and all that kind of stuff. So this is the benefit of being in your own environment, in your backyard. It's upsetting, I think, that people dismiss it. And I understand it. I fall into this trap as well. That I look here, I'm in the countryside, I'm just like, don't want to, it doesn't really grab me. I wish I could be in London or somewhere where it's, actually more interesting. However, something has changed recently in so much as I've changed my approach to processing my images. I've as I said, I've gone for these a lot of contrast here, punchier images where it's almost like lith film. So it's kind of just whites and blacks. And what I found is, because I, as a photographer, don't really want to include people in my images. So people obviously feature quite heavily in Josh's photography, and he's obviously quite interested in people and going about their business in the daily street. I don't really want that. I want something different. But of course, it's a struggle when people are mostly everywhere, right? But also I don't want to be a landscape photographer. I want to photograph urban things that have no actual physical people in them as much as is possible. So the processing that I do has actually opened up a door. It was experimenting, it was trying stuff out, but over the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks, I've actually really leaned into it. and gone, actually, this is great, because now I can use those inky blacks as solid to really just get rid of everybody. So I'm not restricted to what I used to do in the past, which was having to photograph looking quite up, so holes in the sky and stuff like that. So when the buildings kind of make a frame around pieces of sky, and as nice as that is, I like that kind of stuff. It was getting a bit stale. I've been photographing like that for 15 so years. So the idea that I could now actually bring my view lower down has actually been awesome. And it has opened up so many places. And I keep saying it's opened up, right? I'm just driving this point home. Is that now so I can go to places that in the past also wouldn't have been very interesting for me because they're like a busy roof. But if you look at this photograph of a Primark recently that I just took on the weekend, the unedited version, right, was had no process at all. You can see it's very busy. The ceiling's one of those kind of industrial things. There's lots of pipe work and stuff going through. So it's like, it's not very good photograph. But if I then take it into my processing and I, sort of move it to the place where I'm experimenting with now, it becomes a totally different idea, different beast, Now, you may have your own thoughts about, processing images and how, maybe you should get it right straight out of camera, and you can see what I just did. They get it right straight out of camera. I think you're processing as an idea, as something that is part of photography, can be misunderstood. That if we think about, people who just take photographs and then slap some actions on them and filters and things like that without, really thinking about it, I think there's a case there to say that, the photography is not quite what it's supposed to be. But if you apply a feeling and a mood and stuff because you understand what you're going for, I want the punchy crushed blacks and all kind of that bleached out whites. And if I look at Josh's photography, he's stayed consistent to a feel and emotion, whether that's because he photographs on a very specific film stock or he runs his images through a process that gives him this look, is kind of immaterial. What's happening at the end of the day is that those photographs elicit, certainly in me, a certain feeling, a certain mood. And I'm turning 50 now at the end of the year, right? So, I grew up I was born in 74, and I grew up sort of late 70s, early 80s. And I look at Josh's photographs, and they make me feel not nostalgic for that period, but they make me feel like that's from my childhood. Even though these are recent photographs, there is something about that color palette. And we haven't really talked about the color palette, but Josh uses color very, very nicely. There is something about that color palette that just makes me feel like I am back in my garden in North Crawley, wearing an itchy t-shirt with my little Spider-Man camera. And that's what I love about these photographs. They're not images that you look at and go, wow, the composition's amazing, they're stunning, what a wonderfully way it's put together and the timing is just right. Josh's photographs are just making me feel safe. They're making me feel comfort. And I think when you look at people's photographs, when you look at a photograph and, and as other people said, I don't get it, how is this a great photograph? It's because we look at photographs too often, I feel, as surface level things. How's the composition? How's the all the tonality? How's the sharpness? And forgetting that photography it's an emotional thing. And I have a huge thank you to Setanta Books, for sending me this. And I have some other books of this that I'm going to feature because, I wouldn't have gotten a chance to experience Josh's photographs in a way that I feel that is really worthwhile. You sit and you look at a book, and I'm going to put my coffee, and it is coffee, by the way. Everybody's like, how do you wave this thing around? It's like, because I got practice. there he says, like, right, years of gesticulating wildly with coffee mugs has made me have a very steady hand. But, you know, I look at Josh's photographs and, you know, I think when you flick through them in a book, and this is a nicely made book as well. So often, you know, I get a book and I love the images, they're fantastic, but they're often printed on really glossy paper, and it's like, oh man, come on, you know. But this has got a lovely feel to it. I think the images are just about the right size. You know, there's just, it's beautiful. So a huge thank you to Satanta for sending this through. And I've got some others to feature as well, which will be, he says, we're going to trip over my words there, which I will be doing in due course. Now I have to say thank you ever so much for watching the video. You know, go and check out the Framelines YouTube channel, I'll link to it over here, you know, and see what you can find when you're out and about looking at your images, right? Looking for photographs, right? Think about how the light changes, you know, spend a decade you know, just photographing around your environment. But thank you ever so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. And if you're not a member or you haven't signed up for the Saturday selections, then the link is in the description box below. It's my weekly newsletter. Anyway, thanks again, and I'll see you all again soon. Check out Framelines over here.